it appears to rise uphill, if you want.
Exactly.
Sorry, Baldwin, I think you've forgotten your 7/6R claim.
No, I haven't. I'm just not addressing it.
Yeah.
No, I
You're trying to say it appears flat, but it's actually curved. No, it appears flat in your model due to your claiming of 7/6R, which would require an R measurement that you don't have.
Right, but you can't get it because it is refracted. You can't expect somebody with a refraction claim to prove R because there's no visual way to prove it because of it.
So you're saying that it's
Where the hell are my headphones?
For anyone to ask you for the R measurement that you're claiming.
Well, yeah, but it's just like, deliver me tangible proof that this thing is intangible. You can't do that because it's intangible. How can I tangibly prove it's intangible? I can't because it's intangible, so that's unfair. That's not fair.
No, that's not. That's not. That claim.
What the fuck did I do with my earphones? Look the fuck up. I look like shit. Look like shit.
Just to lay out the comparison of how unfair it is. It's not literally intangible. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but it isn't intangible because we can go to the black spot and back to the game.
Yeah, but refraction.
Yeah, so Earth curve is physical and tangible. And the black swan is meant to be
toilet.
It's not physical or tangible. So, in other words, the rebuttal from you in this instance is all is the concession also. It's a bit like saying forced horizontal. What we'll force ourselves to accept how flat it is so we can measure an angle.
Well, my end-all argument is just because we can't prove R because refraction makes that impossible doesn't make R debunked. It's just impossible to prove.
I'm gonna do some work. Do I notice anybody's there? Okay, can you hear me? Let's see. Hello? Test. Can you hear me? People keep throwing $200 fucking offers at me. It's a low ball offer if I've ever had one.
So I'm giving people a piece of myself.
But how am I doing so far?
The New York Times, what a shit publication. True takes a journalist. Meanwhile, they get fucking...
Squarespace is a one-stop shop that helped me set up my online store easily.
It's like they know I have businesses.
I was able to launch my business.
In the sky above your head at a certain time of night or day doesn't mean that that is the actual ISS and it is exactly where they say. That would take more observers. But if we had multiple observers on the ground with telescopes, all tracking the ISS and a live video feed from the ISS, looking back down at Earth, then you would have what's needed for proof. You would be able to test it all to make sure that the craft is exactly where it's supposed to be, and to make sure you see it exactly where it's supposed to be. As it is now, they shut off the camera every 45 minutes. How would you ever be able to determine if it was the actual ISS that you were seeing? Now, why would you doubt them? Well, it could be images like this, which shows a NASA helium balloon taking up a pretty large satellite. In fact, NASA has been launching 50 balloons a day, some of them carrying 8,000 pounds. That's as much as 3 small cars. You could also look into the fact that Google has just purchased Titan Aerospace. And who exactly is Titan Aerospace? Well, they make drones. It says here in the article, Titan touts a variety of applications.
Crop monitor.
Okay, can you hear me now? Is it any better? I don't think it's much better. Did I do something to my... I think I did something to my microphone, or I had to speak like right directly into it. I'm on the computer. Weird. Turn that off. Alright, can you hear me at all? Maybe you can hear me now?
Or is it just better? Is that microphone stronger? I wonder if I broke the fucking microphone on this.
Testing. Yeah, the little black line.
It works better without the headphones in, huh? Well, that sucks. Works better without the headphones. It's weird. I think the last time we had this on, it was the headphones that were doing the trick. Oh, hell. Okay, we'll just go with that. I had something I wanted to show you, Guardians. Let's see. There we go. Better without the headphones. Okay, thank you. Shit, tonight. I was telling BC, man. I'm gonna put this up on Brave browser. Get rid of these fucking ads. See the ads popping up on me. So if I pop open Brave, this does a better job. See, no fucking ads popping up. So you gotta show that to BC, because he was talking about that last night. That he tries to put on Post Millennial, and he gets too many fucking ads. But Brave does the trick. Only thing, I use the Google because it's got all my shit stored in it. Got my whole life stored. So I gave up. I just use it.
So check this out. This is from NASA. CBS News covering NASA. Check out his number. Right here. $24.8 billion. $24.8 billion. They're going to send the first woman, and the next man to the moon as early as 2024. But did you see Crowder when he was talking about sending fucking furries or transgender furries to space or some shit? Look at this line. Space is hard. Better off and cheaper with Elon. Trust Elon Musk about as far as I can throw him. Look at his picture. See, we got two little astronauts right there. It's gonna be the first woman and the next man on the moon. Look at the size of that thing. Space is hard, he said. As you see the development of various space systems in the past, there have been delays. When you go further and further away from the Earth with new technologies, we have seen historically delays. Will they occur? I can't answer that question. I guarantee you there will be delays. I know the goal is 2024, but I think we have to be brutally realistic. That would be something that history would tell us, because space development is so hard that there could be delays to that schedule for the first demonstration flight of landing humans and returning them safely to Earth. The first demonstration flight of landing humans and returning them safely to the Earth. First. Hey, look, am I getting bots? Voon.rent. Huh. Why am I getting robots? Is it because I'm ragging on NASA? An artist's impression of an Orion crew capsule left, moving in for docking at NASA's planned Gateway Lunar Space Station. Especially for trans astronauts. Did you see that on Crowder? That was so funny. 2030, if NASA's in charge? Yes. So, what do they talk? How many billions? If you just round up 25 billion, dude, I can't even fathom that number. Let's have a look at that. 25. That's 25 million. Right? Is that 25 billion? I don't even know. I don't even know what fucking billion looks like. Yeah, no, my first thought. Is that billion? Really? I never said I was a math magician. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8 zeros after 250. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that's one too many zeros, I think. 25 by 10, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's right. It's 25 billion. Okay, so look at that number. That is just under $69 million per day. Just under $69 million per day. And for some reason, I have a sneaking suspicion that if I put that number in exactly, that it'll be 66 million. Six. I bet you see a lot of sixes. Let's find out. Two, 24.8 billion. Okay. 2, 4, 8. Is that right? 24.8. Ah. Peace, Guardians. See if we get some of the other boys to talk for a minute. Before Salty.
Baby's outside.
Okay. Should we open the door?
If you want to crack that one, I mean, he went, but I don't know if he'll probably come back to my door, but he's out there. If he comes out here, let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, baby. He came in here. Hey, buddy. Hmm. $24 billion. To be honest, I am actually shocked that the number doesn't come out to 66666. What's up, Tom Buddhist? How you doing, man? So, Guardius and I were looking at this article here about the NASA budget. they're getting $24.8 billion next year. That's the number that they are looking to get, that they're requesting from the Biden administration, which they no doubt will get at least that much. And I had a sneaking suspicion that if you took 224.8 billion, another motherfucking bot. They were on BC's stream last night too. Glad you're doing good, brother. $24.8 billion. That's a big motherfucking number. Coming out to like $67 million per day, approximately. Every single day. $67 million. Now, here's one of their main priorities. They're going to send the first woman to the moon. Here's a little artist rendition. A big, huge rocket. You see there's the two little astronauts about to go down to this big empty rock. Go look at some dust. It's like a big dust ball up there. We have seen historically delays. Will they occur? You know they're going to occur. If I was getting paid $68 million per day, and I could delay that for another year, I'd do it too. I know the goal is 2024, but I think we have to be brutally realistic. That history would tell us, because space development is so hard, that there could be delays to that schedule for the first demonstration flight of landing humans and returning them safely to Earth. The first. I thought we pulled this off in 1969. Okay, here it is. $24.8 billion budget request represents a 6.6, I'm guessing another 6, at least after that number, boost over 2021. Oh fuck, I think it's raining. Shit, Tom, it's raining. Sorry. Alright. Includes $6.88 billion for the Artemis moon program and $4 billion for space operations. Which covers the ISS. The largest single category in the budget is science operations, totaling $7.93 billion. Science operations. It doesn't get rid of all the ads. Oh, that's the end of the article. That's it. Oh, no, there's more. Here we go. The largest that includes planetary exploration, initial funding for Mars sample return mission, new multi-satellite Earth science initiative to learn more about climate change. Willie Nelson. No bark. Shh. Dog. Can you hear the neighbor's dog too? Willie, hush. President's budget request is recognition that NASA's missions contribute to the administration's larger goals for America, climate change and promoting equity. See that? Climate change, promoting equity, driving economic growth, STEM research and development, all of which equal jobs. It's the largest budget request for NASA science ever. The Biden administration is proving that science is back. Tom, you down in Key West? Yeah, I'm nearby. What you doing in Key West? You live there or visiting? You already said, remember when NASA said one what? Is it my thing going slow? NASA said one of their top priorities was raising awareness of Muslim astronauts. No, I don't remember that. Yeah. Climate change, promoting equity. Exactly how are they driving economic growth? They're taking a lot of taxpayer money. I suppose they're helping out the local economy in Cape Canaveral or any of their other bases, because their employees will be getting a lot of scratch. Namdi Arizavert fucking bot. Hey YouTube, do you want to do something about your bots? Who's attacking me? NASA? YouTube? I don't know. Cover continued development of the Space Launch System, Super Heavy Lift rocket, and a planned upgrade, the Orion crew capsule that will carry astronauts to the moon and the required ground systems. I guess that's what this is. The SpaceX Super Heavy Dick rocket. Another $2.39 billion is earmarked for ongoing development of the planned Gateway Lunar Space Station, which will serve as a research lab. Okay. NASA currently is gearing up to launch the first SLS rocket late this year, boosting an unpiloted Orion capsule on a flight beyond the moon and back. Okay, so they're going to send one up there empty. That makes sense to me. Send it up there empty. Send it right up there to the moon. Have video, running the whole time. Send it on up. Have a look, see what's going on up there. 2024 target was set by the Trump administration. While it never appeared to be a realistic goal given the amount of work required and budget expectations, NASA has stuck with the target, saying it remains achievable if development goes smoothly. I have a feeling that they weren't going to even try if Trump was still in office. But now they want to do something to look good for all beanbag. The proposed 2022 budget for deep exploration includes $1.2 billion for initial funding of a SpaceX contract. So your boy Elon's getting a cut of that. The so-called Option A HLS contract award in April calls for 2 demonstration missions, an unpiloted test flight and one with astronauts on board. Blue Origins and Dynetics protested the SpaceX award, so these billionaires are bitching that another billionaire is getting all this tax money. Ooh. Is this a real picture? Artemis? Are these nerds wearing masks? Yeah, they are. Look at them. All these NASA nerds are wearing masks outdoors in this giant hangar. Fucking bunch of nerds. Late this year. Alright, man, they fucking time's ticking, man. Did they shoot this bitch off or what? What's the date on this? May 28th. Where's the update on? I mean, why is Google shoving this article down my throat? Okay. Yeah. It has been in no uncertain terms expressed to me by members of both the House and the Senate that they want a competition for the remaining lander contract. Oh, so they want the billionaires to fucking duke it out. Trying to see what you're saying there. I don't know if my OBS goes slow or what. It's only giving me like half your message. Maybe I have to like open it up. Try and do this without. Sending it into a death spiral. Okay. No matter what I think of Musk, his program is well in advance of the other ones. Yeah. Those rockets that he sends up that appear to kind of spin and twist and spin while free falling. Pretty impressive. And you know, Jeff Bezos' rocket looks like a dick. Oh, do you see the last line here? America's bipartisan moon to Mars space exploration plan. Keeps us on a path for a regular cadence of Artemis missions to the moon. Under the Artemis program, America will land the first woman, the first person of color on the moon. Ooh, that's important. This commitment is not just a statement, it is an action. I agree with that. It's definitely an action. They're definitely actively grabbing that money and stuffing it in their pockets. In the meantime, what have we gotten? Let me show you. NASA unveils audio recording of Jupiter's largest moon, and it sounds like R2-D2. This is what we're getting for our billions and billions of tax dollars. I agree, Bezos looks like Lex Luthor, doesn't he? That bald-ass head. Let's see if OBS is picking up. I don't know why OBS sucks so hard, man. It's giving me the chat like so super slow. Massive bureaucracy, massive waste of money. You ain't kidding, dude. I mean, even worse than that. $68 million per day. And supposedly, need 3 separate bathrooms for men, women, and trans on Moonshot. Yeah. You ain't kidding. So supposedly, we went to the moon in 1969. Now, you at least got to be on the same page with me that that's bullshit. Right? Do you think we actually went in 1969? And, like, by some, I don't know, whoopsie, destroyed all of the technology to get to the moon and back? And it's just too painful to rebuild, as a quote from a NASA spokesperson. I mean, I get it. You know, they're not going to just, like, come out and say, like, yeah, we lied. But, I mean, it's pretty clear that, you know, they showed in, so even if they actually did go to the moon in 69, you know, what they showed you was not actual video footage, it was animation. And they've even admitted to that. That the videos that they have of, like, the capsule landing, and that's all animations. And artistic representations. I mean, they've admitted to that. They claim that they did actually go. This is the kind of, you know, hard-hitting science that they're giving us. Audio recording of Jupiter's largest moon, and it sounds like R2-D2. Boop. So researchers are collecting radio waves from Ganymede, made a surprising find. The recordings of the largest moon, when adapted to human ears, now they have to adapt the sound to human ears, sounds like R2-D2. Why would they have to adapt it to human ears? What is the raw data that they're collecting that they would then convert to adapt to human ears? Does that sound like a good use of $68 million per day? Even if that's real? You think it really sounds like R2-D2, or do you think that whatever that pile of ones and zeros that they got, they just decided to make it sound like R2-D2? Juno mission, which launched in August 2011, arrived at Jupiter in July of 2016. The Juno spacecraft has completed dozens of orbits around the planet, and on June 7th, it flew closer to Jupiter's largest moon than any other in more than 20 years, coming within 645 miles of the moon's surface. The smallest moon goes LG, what is it? LGP, FJP. As it got close to Ganymede, NASA's WAVES instrument collected data from an electric and magnetic radio waves. Researchers then shifted the frequencies of these waves to make them audio, creating a 50-second moon track filled with chirps, beeps, and boops. Aww. That's cute. That's a good assumption, Guardius. I'd say it's a pretty spot-on assessment of what's going on. I think, like, with this article, how could they not be lying to us? I mean, they literally say they had to adapt it to human ears. And, you know, if you're not thinking critically, if you think, you know, they took this data and they had to change it, of course, because it doesn't sound like anything. And they just decided that a bunch of chirps, beeps, and boops would be a good... Sounds like R2-D2, dude. I don't know why I can't get it to play. Here, I'll get it on YouTube. Here we go. So, is this like what you would hear if you were on the surface? Like, is that just what would be going on all around you while you're while you're moonwalking around? Sad thing is that the government has destroyed average person's faith in science. Without question. I mean, I would disagree. I think that they have abused the intelligent person's faith in the government, because they're not performing science. They're performing, but they're not actually completing science. The science is questioning things. It's a process. It's not something. It's not something to even have faith in. You know, it's a method. And they've abused it. They've abused it, and they've abused us by lying. None of this is science. I mean, even if all of this was real, what they're doing here is not science. This is an artistic interpretation, having to adjust something to human ears. And, you know, the thing is that at least they actually admit, you know, like it's almost like they're not actually lying. You know, that like they tell you that they had to change it. Faith in the process of science, good. Me too. I think that questioning and performing experiments to find answers is an amazing method of exploring the world around us. I think it's been bastardized. Let's see here. Frequency is due to passing from the night side to the day side of the moon. Okay. Night side to the day side. Here's a question. So, if Jupiter, I mean, what's their supposed distance for Jupiter? I don't know. It's much further than the moon. It's further than Mars. It's so far away from the sun, which is 93 million, or is it 93 billion miles away from here. The distance they're claiming the sun to be at, it's either 93 million or 93 billion miles away from Earth. And here, we see it, and it's the size of a quarter held up at arm's length, right? So you go to Mars, you go to Jupiter. What does the sun look like there? Does it look like a quarter? That much further away from Earth? Or does it look like a star? Is it the size of a pinhead? The distance you are from Jupiter to the sun. And if that's the case, how the hell do you have daylight?
Did you run away? Where'd you go? Is he out there?
Yep.
He was fast.
Yeah, you don't fuck around.
You know, he just flew out here when I turned the shower on. I was literally locked in the bathroom. He was in there.
You don't want to take no damn bath.
He's been in there hanging out with me. What's going on with him? Is he not feeling good?
No, I think he's just fine.
He's not feeling good. I think he just comes and hangs by me when he doesn't feel good. Yeah. Or he's got to go to the bathroom. Oh, he's just laying in there on my floor. I asked him if he wanted to take a bath with me, and he bolted. Not feeling good? You're not feeling so good? You got your hand. Is that tea, babe?
Yeah, it's just sweet tea, man.
Oh.
Okay. I don't know, man. I think that's a question. What the sun looks like from Jupiter. How do you have night and day? If it's the size of a star. You just do, right?
What are you talking
I'm on the computer. Oh my God.
I'm not kidding. We have other things we can do. Yeah, I really like this tea thing. It's a lot.
Me too.
I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for them. I've seen them before. I just didn't know what they were. I thought they were missing a part.
Yeah? You've seen them at the...
Probably charming.
Are they some kind of
They were.
MLM? Are they like an MLM company?
No, Tijuana is their own little standalone place. It's really expensive tea. It's not an MLM though. It's an actual like tea company. They have like high-end boutique teas.
Uh-huh.
Like, yeah. They're in malls and stuff.
Yeah.
And they have standalone buildings.
Oh. We're going to get a Christmas gift. Gonna launch this telescope.
Where is my L?
Watch the video.
Tomato. Shiny, mouth-watering sphere of red. Ripe and thirsty with flavor. Fruit or vegetable? Tomato. Tomato. Does it really matter?
Oh, baby, I'm gonna make arepas with chicken in
And
it.
it's a pleasure to dress
Unless I eat the whole ass chicken.
Don't eat the whole ass chicken. I want to make arepas.
with Bertoni extra virgin olive oil. Elevate
I'm gonna eat the whole ass chicken.
We're just days away from what may become the deepest look into our ghosts of Christmas past and beyond.
Have
We
you
might even
mixed this
glimpse
with
the very
like the
origins of our new
peach tea and stuff?
proposed
It's, yes, I have.
the Hubble Space Telescope, our window on the universe. In 1990, NASA launched the Hubble Space Telescope. It had faced years of delays and cost overruns, but it proved the existence of black holes, calculated the age of the universe, and delivered astonishing views of deep space. But now, NASA has something 100 times more powerful, capable of seeing stars so distant their light has been traveling for nearly 14 billion years, since just after the Big Bang. It's the biggest, most ambitious space observatory ever built, the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's scheduled to lift off in 10 days.
It's got 7 times the collecting area, a mirror, which collects more light, right, to see things that are either dimmer or further away.
Scott Willoughby is the Webb program manager. He works for Northrop Grumman, which NASA hired to do most of the design and construction. The Webb will see a different kind of light than the Hubble. The light from very distant, very old stars is infrared light.
So we're designing an eye, like night vision goggles for the sky, where we're going to find infrared out in the universe.
So this is the telescope.
Yeah, teeny one.
Not actual size. The main mirror is made up of 18 hexagons.
Every one of these mirrors has a motor, so we can move them, all look like one mirror segment of the universe.
Was it made golden for looks?
It was not. It's a great question. For Webb, gold reflects infrared. So light goes from here to here to here. It goes in there. It bounces off to other mirrors, and then all instruments can see that light.
Now, infrared is a form of heat. So any warmth from the sun and the earth would blind this telescope to distant starlight. The telescope can work only if it's super cold, like space itself.
So we have to block out any shred of that sun by deploying a big sun shield.
It has 5 layers of a material like mylar, each one the thickness of a human hair. So all of this is to just separate the whole thing into a cold side from the hot side.
Correct. That cold side, minus 400 degrees Fahrenheit. The hot side, about plus 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Sunlight will never touch these mirrors as they get on orbit.
There's another way to keep a telescope cold, too.
We send it 4 times further away than the moon. We're 1 million miles away. And with that, we can keep our optics cold.
But you haven't even heard the hardest part. This telescope is 3 stories tall and as wide as a tennis court, too big to fit into any existing rocket. NASA's solution? Fold it up, like origami.
So this folds along here and along here. Those 3 fold back, and those 3 fold back. They fold? Yeah, so like ears. So this wing will deploy, this wing, and this is actually stowed up and over.
I have to say, this is the part that worries me as a layperson. I mean, how complex is this unfolding process?
It's good to be worried. They have things that are called single point failures. Like this has to move this way, and there's only one of them. The Webb has over 300 of them.
300 things that have to go exactly right.
Yeah.
If even one of them fails, the Webb telescope becomes the Webb space junk. 1 million miles is much too far away to send a repair mission, as we did for the Hubble.
So what do you do with those? You test them to greater extremes than they'll ever see. If it's got to be this cold and this warm, we test it this cold and this warm. If it's got to be shaken like this, we shake it like this, right?
All that additional testing and caution helps explain the telescope's 14 years of delays and its $9.7 billion price tag.
Every time we learn something, we had to repeat a series of tests. But all of that is because we have to learn on the ground.
So at this point, days away from the launch, how confident are you?
Confidence is built to me did we do everything that we could possibly have done. I can confidently say we did everything that we needed to do. We took every piece of it, and we did the best we absolutely possibly could.
If all goes well, then by the summer of 2022, this machine will get down to its work. Science.
JWST is going to rewrite the textbooks, and I think the science that's going to come out of it is mind-blowing.
NASA's Stephanie Milam is one of the telescope's scientists.
We're going to see the first stars and galaxies and understand how the evolution of our universe actually started. We're going to be able to study the atmospheres of planets around other stars that we've never had access to.
Most exciting of all, Milam expects the Webb telescope to discover things we never even thought to look for, as the Hubble has done many times.
There are going to be things that we aren't prepared for, and we'll have to figure out how to use the telescope in different ways and for the unexpected.
After the scheduled launch on December 22nd, Scott Willoughby will have to wait 29 days to find out if the unfolding works, and then 5 months more for the telescope to calibrate and cool down.
So in the end, it takes us a half a year before you'll be reporting on some image that humankind has never seen before in our lives.
And is that the point where you can finally sleep at night?
Yeah, I'll feel a lot better then.
Well, that's a cool picture.
Some of us.
Yeah, I've seen these things like 3 or 4 times.
What things?
Those Tivana things.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I really seriously, until I brought that one up here, that I realized what it actually was. I thought it was like the top to a tea maker, you know? Bra, what, Willie? Fuck you looking at. He's on so good. Okay.
Across the country, the White House is facing questions about whether it acted fast enough.
We should all be concerned about Omicron, but not panic.
President Biden tried to reassure the nation Tuesday and issued a stark warning to those who don't have shots.
If you're not fully vaccinated, you have good reason to be concerned. You're at a high risk of getting sick. And if you get sick, you're likely to spread it to others, including friends and family.
Research shows that the risk of household transmission is nearly 3 times higher than the Delta variant. Mr. Biden also said 500 million at-home rapid tests will be mailed to Americans who order them from the government for free online starting next month. But officials can't yet say how quickly the tests can be ordered and distributed.
We are working through all those very important details right now.
The administration is trying to avoid scenes like this. Long testing lines in Miami, Cleveland, and Los Angeles. And the president dismissed concerns his administration should have expanded testing options sooner.
The Omicron virus spread even more rapidly than anybody thought.
But just hours later, the CDC director said this.
We anticipated that we would be seeing this kind of increase from 3% of cases to 73% of cases in around this period of time.
So you're saying you knew this was coming?
We have been following carefully the science, and we have been working hard as we anticipated this.
Today, the president is set to be tested for COVID yet again. A staffer he came into close proximity to late last week tested positive on Monday. The president was tested. He tested negative. Aides say he has shown no symptoms. Gail?
That's good.
Thank you very much.
Good.
France.
Good. Okay. What are we looking at? They're going to launch this thing on Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, America.
Profiled Trevor Noah, a stand-up comedian and the host of The Daily Show
This
on Comedy
guy's really
Central.
important.
I found him genuinely funny in person. Even during the interview, he was constantly
Is he
riffing,
flirting with this old
always
lady?
trying to find the humor, and sometimes at my expense.
You think he banged this old lady?
Moms, like women are
I bet you he did.
don't have a mic.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's gone now. But I wasn't going to let that happen to you. Yeah, because no one tells you there's a fly.
No, I know. I would tell you.
I got you, Leslie. There was a fly there, and we're not going to let that happen to Leslie.
Such amusing
Where are you
banter.
guys?
No, it landed, and then I got rid of it. I can't tell you anything secret because it's a secret. If you go like, wait,
we watched his
laughed.
knack for finding it funny as he prepared to tape an episode of The Daily Show, a Viacom CBS property. He was reading the script and fine-tuning what he called the music, the rhythm of the jokes, to try and make them the funniest they could be. When he got to a joke about transplanting a pig organ into a human, Trevor came up with a new idea on the spot.
You know when you get an organ transplant, I mean, not that I have, but a lot of people say. No, but I'm just saying, like, you know, people say like, some people be like, oh, I can feel the person, I can that. But now when you get it from a pig, this is gonna be wow, Trevor really finds truffles like so well now. I'm just like finding truffles.
So he took this new idea and added it to the show as an improvisation.
We should put the truffle thing in instead of the elephant. You can even just put truffle riff on top of it. Yeah. Just put truffle riff in. Yeah. What if Trevor gets a pig kidney? And all of a sudden I'm like walking around in the street. And then all of a sudden I'm just like, truffles? Truffles? Truffles! Truffles!
What neighborhood do you live in where you can walk down the street smelling truffles? Right now, there's no live audience at The Daily Show. Quite a difference from when he performed stand-up.
I'm really lucky to have audiences from all walks of life and all races.
We went backstage with him before one of his recent stand-up shows to see what he does to get himself in the zone before performing in front of so many people. For Trevor Noah, the answer always is play video games.
I try and have the most authentic experience backstage before I go on stage so that I can be the most Trevor possible when I go out there. So I want to say the things I'm going to say to my friends that I would normally eat. What would I do on a weekend? I'd be playing video games probably. I'd be hanging out with friends. We'd be laughing. Sometimes we watch sports.
His favorite is soccer.
What sports do you watch?
Oh, I'm a big watcher. I watch everything.
Leslie's just out there watching sports. Doesn't matter. Just pick up games in New York in the street. Leslie will stop and watch them.
I like the Olympics a lot.
Do you have a favorite sport at the Olympics?
Swimming was really
He's hitting on that old lady, no doubt. That couch got to work out.
Little did I know what was coming when he took the stage.
Why people love swimming so much that they found a way to make swimmers get more medals than anybody else at the Olympics. It's a trick. It's a trick because think about it. Swimming is the only discipline at the Olympics where you can win multiple medals for doing the same thing in a slightly different way. That makes no sense. No sense whatsoever.
White people make no sense.
Jump in the pool. 50-meter freestyle. Bang. Win. Gold medal. Yeah. And now, like this. Another medal. But what about like this?
This is some comedy gold right here.
Another medal. Okay, but this one? What the hell is that?
That's a great question.
It's this relationship with an audience that drives Trevor Noah. Even though he has a successful television show, he told us that stand-up will always be his first love and his passion.
I don't know where anything else will go in life. I know that I will always be doing stand-up for as long as I am able to do stand-up comedy. It may be to 100 people, it may be to 1,000 people, it may be to 20,000 people. I will always be doing stand-up comedy for as long as I can. Everything else will come and go.
That's what you get the most from.
Yeah.
People?
Yes.
Ugh. What a fucking pile of shit. Alright, so back to the Webb telescope. So let's see. 6 times larger than the Hubble. It'll capture infrared light from the first generation of stars and galaxies. So it's a time telescope. You can see back in time. 13.8 billion years to be specific. They'll study galactic evolution, life cycles of stars, attempt to chart the formation of supermassive black holes. I don't know how to do that, but apparently they can do that with infrared light. Webb study planets in our own solar system, along with comets, asteroids. Okay. It's going to give us a better understanding of our universe and our place in it. That's what this is really about. Who we are, what we are, the search that's eternal. Why are we here? How do we get here? Said NASA's Administrator Bill Nelson. Webb is the keyhole into the past, and it's a groundbreaker for humanity's future.
Thanks.
Socks are the #1 most requested. This thing is a fucking larp. It ain't real. Not one. Look at this. It's meant to make us feel small, insignificant. There's underwear over my head. Underwear and socks. Butts. Crotches. These are the images that they're slamming into our head. Butts.
Quickly, the Omicron variant is spreading across this country. The CDC reported nearly, look at this graph, nearly 290,000 new COVID cases on Monday. Now, that's the second most new infections reported in one day since this pandemic began, and the most since January 8th of this year, when most people did not have access to a vaccine. Now, President Biden has announced a wide range of steps to slow the spread, including more testing. Ed O'Keefe will have more on that in just a second from the White House. But first, Nancy Chen is here in New York, where more than 90% of cases are tied to Omicron across the region. Nancy, good morning to you. The line's still very long.
Gail, good morning to you. This year was supposed to mark the return of the in-person New Year's Eve celebration here in Times Square, but that may not happen now with the mayor.
The delay from the newscaster here to the anchor woman is longer than the delay from the ISS.
We're expected to make an announcement about if people can gather by the end of this week. New statewide numbers have been topping 22,000 for several days.
It's going to be a challenging few weeks. There's no question about it. We're seeing a big upsurge in cases.
Desperate to stop Omicron's spread, the nation's largest city announced new incentives.
We're announcing a $100 incentive for everyone who goes out and gets a booster here in New York City between now and the end of the year.
It's not just New York. Just over 30% of eligible Americans are boosted, as state officials across the country are pleading with the public to get their booster shots.
Don't put off getting your third dose, and we need to stop thinking about it as an optional dose.
In Israel, they're now recommending a fourth shot for anyone over 60. Peter Hotez is a professor of virology at the Baylor College of Medicine.
So if you're trying to keep the healthcare workforce smarter than all of us,
in the healthcare workforce, we might need to look at giving that second booster as a way to temporarily, again, raise up your virus neutralizing antibodies and keep you in play.
Almost 40% of the population in the U.S. is still not vaccinated, and cities are hoping new restrictions will slow the spread. Atlanta will impose an indoor mask mandate regardless of vaccination status. Boston and Chicago will now require proof of vaccination for indoor settings like gyms and restaurants.
We didn't want to get to this point, but given the situation we find ourselves in, we simply have no choice.
And just days away from our second COVID Christmas, there are new concerns about airline labor shortages due to positive cases. In a letter Tuesday, Delta CEO asked the CDC to reduce the recommended quarantine time from 10 days to 5 for those who are vaccinated.
And there are no changes to quarantine recommendations yet, but there is promising news. The FDA could grant emergency use authorization to COVID antiviral pills from Pfizer and Merck as early as today. They were found to be up to 88% effective if taken within 5 days of getting symptoms. However, health officials do say the key to getting through this pandemic, Nate, is to get vaccinated.
Yeah, as we know, vaccinations work. Hopefully the pills do too. Nancy, thank you so much.
If you have that
great stuff there. All right, let's see. Gary Watts, $200 for this. Where is he? Where's Gary Watts? Let's see where he's shipping. United States. You have to give me more information than that, dude. Oh, Sacramento, California. So shipping it across the country. It's gonna cost me like $70. Russell. The experiment requires that you continue, said the man in the white coat. Yep. That's what he's shouting. Alright. I figured I'd take care of some business. I didn't think anybody was here. What do we got now?
Yeah, good morning, Gail. So things are moving quickly, right? So about a week ago, we reported that we had about 3% of our sequences now representing Omicron, and now this week we're reporting up to 73%. So we've known about Omicron for a little.
So do you think they'll blast me just for showing this CBS News? I bet I'd get a strike just for that. Not even making any comments on it, really.
Less than a month now, and as we've been following it for the last several weeks, we have seen in countries that preceded us and other places doubling times of this virus of as quickly as 2 days or 1.5 days even. So as we started to learn about this just over the last couple of weeks, we have seen that what is happening here in the United States is mirrored what is happening in other countries, and that really was the motivation for the president's and the administration's work right now to increase surge capacity throughout hospitals, to increase capacity to do testing and access to testing, and then of course to increase access to vaccinations as well.
I know we've heard all that we need to do, and clearly people are not doing it. But I still want to go back to, it doesn't seem like we were prepared for this.
Gail's mad.
Yeah, you know, the administration has been doing a lot in testing, and we have a lot more work to do. We recognize that. We've invested $3 billion in rapid tests, and even yesterday the president announced another 500,000 rapid tests that will be distributed to people without otherwise having access. We have 20,000 sites that you can get a free PCR test, and even right now as we speak, we're scaling up rapid PCR testing, federal sites for PCR testing in places that have the highest demand, including New York.
Dr. Walensky, with all of these people testing positive these days and more positives expected in January, people are looking at that 10-day isolation period that's still in effect, even if you're vaccinated and boosted. Meanwhile, the UK has reduced it to 7 days. Delta CEO wants a reduction here. We've heard one of our frequent guests, Dr. Ashish Jha, say to friends he recommends as little as 5 days. Could we see movement from the CDC on that quarantine period?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're actively examining those data now and doing some modeling analyses to assess that, and we anticipate that we'll have some updates soon.
Dr. Walensky, more than 1,000 children have died of COVID in the U.S. They currently make up a quarter of the cases. 90% of children aren't vaccinated. So a lot of parents like myself are trying to figure out how to navigate not just through the holidays, but also with school. So what do you think we should do? Should we gather with our friends and family? And do you believe schools should be shut down?
Definitely not. And yes.
Right. So several things in there, Nate. First, the best way we can protect our children is to get them vaccinated. Children above the age of 5 are all eligible for vaccination, and we are really working to get our children vaccinated to protect them from disease. If your child is less than 5, the best way to protect them is to surround them with people who are vaccinated themselves, who are boosted themselves. In terms of the holiday, how do we do the holiday safely? Certainly you want to make sure that you're vaccinated and boosted if you're eligible, and that the people who you're gathering with are vaccinated and eligible as well. But I want to highlight one important piece, and that is people are talking about the plane rides and the train rides, and that's actually not where the real challenge is. How safe your holiday is really about how safe you are in the time leading up to the holiday.
Yeah, we all have the information. It's just a matter of what we do with the information. You've certainly put the message out there. Thank you, Dr. Rochelle Walensky. We'll see you again, I know.
Thank you so much. Indeed.
Yeah, I think there's a model of taking all of the people that we consider unclean and putting them in, like, taking them from a big place and kind of concentrating them into another space, like some kind of camp where we could concentrate these people that are unclean.
Ports in Savannah, Georgia, says it is making progress on clearing its backlog of goods
by using a new concept called a pop-up port. Facilities built inland to get cargo closer to retailers more quickly. Chris Van Cleve spoke to Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg about how that idea could help clear backlogs nationwide.
Rural Joiner's family furniture business, 24E Style, is feeling the pinch of supply chain delays. His Savannah, Georgia warehouse has about half its usual inventory.
So if I said I want this sofa today, when could I actually have it in my house?
So I would give you this sofa today, but if you wanted one special ordered in a different color or whatever it was, I'd have to tell you at least 6 months.
6 months?
Yes, sir.
That sofa is made in Dallas, but has components from China.
Where you had a seamless timeline before and something that was predictable is now unpredictable.
As your costs go up, what you charge your customers goes up.
Absolutely, I have to if I'm going to stay in business.
Joyner thinks the kinks in his supply chain would be worse if he wasn't a 15-minute drive from one of the nation's largest ports.
How out of whack is the supply chain right now?
What we're dealing with is completely unprecedented. We're still catching up as a nation to what happened a year and a half ago when Asia shut down.
Griff Lynch is the executive director of Georgia Ports, which runs the Port of Savannah.
What really has to happen is we've got to grow all of the pipeline. That's going to take a long time to fix. I think we're talking about 2022 being a tough year again.
Savannah longshoremen are working 24 hours a day to clear a backlog of shipping containers. In mid-October, the port had 31 ships waiting offshore. That's down to 6. At its peak, containers were sitting here for nearly 2 weeks. It's down to 7 days, but that's still 75% longer than normal. The port set up what amounts to 4 inland pop-up ports like this one. They were unused rail yards that expanded the port's container capacity by 10%, while putting cargo closer to retailers. For trucks delivering to Home Depot in Atlanta, a round trip becomes 70 miles instead of 440.
At the end of the day, we're all dealing with a parking lot. And when the parking lot is full, it's full. So the race for us is to keep the parking lot as empty as possible and keep the cars moving out.
But keeping things moving isn't easy right now. The nation is dealing with a shortage of truck drivers. The chassis that transport cargo containers are in short supply, and a lack of sufficient warehouse space.
Do you feel like you're playing whack-a-mole?
Sometimes it can feel that way when we're trying to solve these short-term issues that really reflect underinvestment that's happened over decades.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says the Biden administration is now studying if similar pop-up ports could help ease congestion elsewhere.
At the end of the day, for folks who want to know when these most severe disruptions will end, the answer is very simple. They will end when the pandemic ends.
Until then, the Port of Savannah is expanding, adding more space for ships and cargo. Its enlarged mega-rail terminal can now move 1 million containers a year by train.
Knowing there's a shortage of truck drivers, the Savannah port focused on expanding its rail service. These containers are all loaded on rail cars that are going to head to big cities like Charlotte, Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas. That's one step closer to getting products on store shelves.
For Rural Joiner, getting products back on the shelves will mean furniture sitting in people's homes, not his warehouse, delivered without further delay. For CBS Mornings, I'm Chris Van Cleve in Savannah, Georgia.
Looking for a couch, Gail? Got one down there.
I saw a little Celadon Green number that looked okay. That isn't comforting to hear Secretary Buttigieg say it'll be better when the pandemic is over, because nobody knows when this pandemic is. We're going now, guys, into year 3 of the pandemic.
Year 3?
Yep.
No, it's the never-ending story, except not entertaining. Yeah.
Yep. We're going to be starting. Well, we started March 2020. Now we're going into 2022.
But we can go in with optimism, though. All right?
Can we?
Optimism and hope.
Okay.
We can, yeah, we can. We can make that choice.
I actually do, though. And, Nate, I actually agree with you.
Yeah.
We have vaccinations. We have boosters. We are much better off than we were in March 2020. I actually do agree with that. In the meantime, I'm scared.
Tomato.
Find me a girlfriend, find me a girlfriend.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to tell you about this new product. I'm an online instructor, and I've always been afraid to film myself.
Progressives who pushed that woman that got pushed for the funding of the police came back and said we should fund it. So let me bring in Garland Nixon. And Garland, what do you make of this story?
A couple of things here, Jimmy. Number one, and you know, I am for significant police reform, but I was never crazy about the term defund the police. And I think we see here one of the issues with it, because you're kind of saying, I don't really know what that means. Defund the police is that some people argue that it's abolition. People who oppose police reform seize upon the term defund the police and
Thanks, man. Yeah, no sound. I had it switched over. So we're talking about cargo ships with up to 500 tons. I've not heard of this. 7 sailing rigs for cargo ships. Thank Natsari. We got it now, huh? Well, Russell, where'd you see any information on this? Is this here's a New York Times article, the paper of record. Can massive cargo ships use wind to go green? You saw this in Ecuador, or they're building these in Ecuador? Cargo vessels belch almost as much carbon into the air. Modern sails could have a surprising impact. Actually, I think that's just kind of an awesome idea in general. Eco Clipper. Look that up on the other one. Let's see. Oh, look, this guy was living in Fukushima. Might have got a little bit of superpowers from eating the sushi there. Powerful tsunami. Alright, had a background in sustainable development, especially as it relates to shipping. In his travels in East Africa and Bangladesh, he had watched traditional sails and masts replaced by outboard motors. Okay, yeah, buying fuel, damaging the environment. Environmental disaster had followed him. Okay, to escape the aftermath, the family moved to Allright's hometown on the outskirts of London, but he couldn't stop thinking about Fukushima. It was a dramatic display of technology going wrong, further proof that the world we built is unsustainable. Okay. Thought about shipping. Every country benefiting from global trade. Shipping is everybody's responsibility, but treated as if it's nobody's. Well, that's kind of true. In the vast but liminal space of ocean, cargo vessels, some of the largest machines on the planet, have generally operated in obscurity. Wright had previously spent 10 years working with a group that tried to build small cargo ships. Okay, blah, blah, blah. There we go. As wind moves against their curves, it creates a high pressure. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's the fundamentals of forward thrust and sailing. So they can move a huge cargo vessel. Yeah. Speed and predictability to which the global economy is accustomed. Yeah, so they could power sail essentially. Yeah, you know, kind of a pretty obvious idea, right? I mean, use trade winds to get across both oceans. We're talking about Pacific travel. We're talking about Atlantic travel. We're talking about Japan to California. Looking back on it, I believed it was a commercial failure, not a technical one. In 2014, he started the International Windship Association, a trade association bringing together disparate groups of inventors. Maybe that's where we need to look. It looks like we have some Twitter stuff on there too. International Windship Association. Decade of wind propulsion. 130 plus members, delivering wind propulsion installations, optimizing the technology, helping facilitate a quicker, deeper, and ultimately cheaper transition to a fully decarbonized fleet. So this is all a very eco, climate friendly operation. But aside from that, it just seems kind of obvious. It should utilize the elements around us. I suppose suppose you could just drop the sails, when it gets hairy out there. I imagine they'd have to be some pretty huge sails. It looks like they're Bound for Blue has installed an 18-meter high E-sail. Okay. Now, that's not a particularly large sail. I'd like to see one of these in action now. Let's see if we can find a video. Okay, so these are not traditional looking sails, huh? They're like solid. Okay, look at how they fold up. Automated wind assisted propulsion system. So these aren't direct propulsion, it's assisted. Huh. Let's see if we can get a webinar.
Squarespace lets you run your brand like a...
Looks good. Look at that hair, man. Look at that hair. Wow.
Hello, and welcome to another of the Nautical Institute's technical webinars. I'm David Petrayko with the Nautical Institute's headquarters staff in London. I'm being joined here this morning by Gavin, also who are curious to explore new concepts and try to figure out how they work in operations. We think they make better decisions.
How can design support better decisions? Okay. I'd like to see some of this design. Basic technical, how they do it. Here's this guy. Oh, here's that Gavin Allwright that was in the this is the guy from the New York Times article right here. I remember seeing a Popular Mechanics or Popular Science magazine 30 years ago on the e-sail slotted wind propulsion towers for ocean vessels. No kidding, so 30 years ago. Now, it looks like there's only one cargo ship with them implemented. Moving fast. Wind propulsion will form a significant part of windship propulsion technology by 2030. Now, let's see, Russell. I just speculate that there are more to the trade winds than they let on, and they have their goals, and usually they are diametrically opposed to the good. Yeah, man, big time. I mean, there's absolutely more to it than is let on. There's so much energy in this world that is not utilized, at least not utilized for our general benefit. You know, you get in an airplane and jump in the jet stream, and that's just an incredible push, use of energy for the airplanes to get across. It seems like using these e-sails would make total sense for chugging these giant things across the Atlantic or the Pacific. It is, yeah, about making a controlled profit. Everything. I mean, every industry that we see is about a controlled profit. You know, it's not even like capitalism, you know, versus socialism issue. I mean, it's like, you know, crony capitalism is basically just socialism at that point when it doesn't allow for the free expression of trade. Yeah, man. No, thanks for bringing it up. You know, when you control the profit, it's like controlling your competitors, creating monopolies, which, you know, is essentially communism. It's the, you know, the finishing authoritarian touch. You got to allow for competition, man. If you become out-competed because somebody else has come up with a better product or a better means of utilizing the wind, you know, or putting sails on cargo ships. Look at some of these designs. Now you get yours. I mean, that I would be okay with. It's like, I got mine, now you get yours. You got to allow them to get theirs. But it's like, I got mine, and I'm going to stop you from getting yours. You know, it's putting your thumb on the scale. Put more than your thumb on it. It's like, you know, using the police to come and knock them down so that they can't take over. So they can't even compete with you. That was all it was. They found a way around legal cases of monopolies. They sure as hell did. I mean, you saw what they did to what Twitter did to Parler, right? go over to their buddy and say, "Hey, take them off the Apple iTunes and off Google Play, so nobody can download them." You know, if somebody brings up a little competition and they squash it. I mean, what other monopolies? We're getting into like tech monopolies at this point in time. All of our internet goes through, what is it, 4 companies? Let's see what this guy's got to say. Not Bell.
For introducing me. As David mentioned, I'm the Secretary General of the International Windship Association. And our primary goal
Can y'all hear that?
Standard Oil Company to help facilitate the uptake of wind propulsion in commercial shipping. So we don't deal with the leisure, the huge leisure area. 100% this is on commercial shipping.
Strictly commercial.
So the International Windship Association network, as mentioned, has grown actually to over 130 member organizations. And these come from across the board, the stakeholders in the shipping industry, from ship owners to ship builders, technology providers, which is obviously a large segment of our group, all the way through to seafarers, academics, researchers, etc.
Asia, Africa,
I'm an elected official, so I've been
Australia to Southeast Asia.
For the last 6 years, which is my great privilege. And we, of course, we have a much wider network, over 1,000 plus
Mercator projection.
receivers, other people that we call on and work with in the industry. As mentioned here, the IWSA activities, the network is very important for us, promotion through communications, incubating, educating, and facilitating. I will be talking about some of those issues and some of the projects that we have up and running at present. And we're also developing hubs around the world, and these are actually indicated by the dark blue stars. As you'll see, at present, Europe is the driving force in this technology development area. Now, today, what I will be discussing, I will give you a broad overview of what wind propulsion actually is and what it can deliver. Then we'll move on to a little bit of an overview of the technologies that are out there, and then we'll take a look at the market development and some of the drivers and barriers to that development. And I'll finish off with some project news and a few vignettes just to give you an idea of some of the latest developments in the sector. But first of all, I just want to focus on the shipping challenge. And I think probably 99% of you on this call understand that we're facing a huge challenge. Actually, the shipping industry is the only global industry that's actually gone from being a decarbonized industry in the age of sail through to a fully carbonized industry, or pretty much fully carbonized industry. And now we're heading back to a decarbonized industry again. And I'd just like to highlight this 1.5 degree target. If we are to hit that, and there's a question mark around that, all the ships designed and built today are going to need to operate in a net zero emissions world at the end of their service life, in those 2040s. Now, that doesn't mean they have to be zero emissions vessels, but every ton of carbon that is coming out of a smokestack will have to be paid for, and paid for in a substantial way. We've seen some developments. The initial.
Did you catch that? Every piece of carbon that comes out is going to be paid for. Now, I'm all for reducing emissions. I mean, there's nothing good about emissions. What I'm against is the collection of having to pay for said emissions, and who you paying them to. And are we all going to be paying for our vehicles? Driving to the grocery store, is that we're going to pay for our carbon emissions going to the grocery? I feel like there's kind of a sinister undertone on something that is otherwise pretty cool. Yeah, I think my mic is busted.
IMO strategy on GHG emissions. The critical point there is the at least, which is often dropped out of when people are talking about this. The at least 50% reduction by 2050. And I think that we are seeing an increased pressure to go beyond that 50% by 2050. That's a big challenge. Just to put that in context, if shipping was a country by itself, then it would have the greenhouse gas emissions of a country around the size of Germany. So that is a substantial amount of carbon that is being released by around 60,000 plus large ocean-going vessels. And that's predicted to rise by around 50% by 2050. That's the fourth GHG study. The one prior to that actually was more pessimistic, saying 50% up to 250%. So we're not 100% sure where that's going, but that's the assessment at the moment. Now, we had a Maersk announcement which looked at fleet carbon neutrality by 2050. So that's going ahead of that IMO strategy. And of course, we've had the what can it do? Well, firstly, it's a primary renewable. So what we're saying here is that it's a direct energy delivery to the vessel with no new infrastructure, saving around about 5 to 20% of fuel, or more importantly, delivering 5 to 20% of the propulsive energy. And that is averaged out over a full year of operation in comparison to a motor vessel with no operational changes. So we could be seeing that optimized up to around 30% as those systems are optimized and as the retrofitting option is improved. But we're also looking at new builds of primary wind, where we could be seeing 30%, 50%, 60, 70, right up to 80% of the propulsive energy delivered to the vessel if she was built primarily for wind. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. Installation. Now, one of the big issues that we always hear is, well, that's a very expensive system to put on. The capex is challenging, especially with low fuel prices. Well, there are some ideas that are being developed at the moment for renting or more importantly, leasing of systems onto vessels, which would actually reduce or transfer that heavy capex into an OPEX situation, which most ship owners would prefer. There are also some other financial systems or facilities that are being developed that can do the similar thing, but the payments are shared by the amount of money that's saved from the system. Interestingly, if we start to look at wind propulsion in the mix, and I will talk about this a little bit more in a moment, it's also a facilitator for secondary renewables. And a secondary renewable is that indirect use of renewable energy. For example, hydrogen, ammonia, batteries. A lot of the conversation that we're seeing is around these alternative fuels, which are probably pretty much a decade away, possibly longer for the full rollout of those fuels. The wind, if you're reducing your component by 20% or 30% across the fleet, that reduces the cost that we're looking at for bringing these renewables into the market. And I will touch on this in a moment a little bit more. But we have some other aspects as well, range extending. If you're reducing speed, you're actually potentially increasing the percentage that wind can deliver. Bunkering flexibility, so you don't have to bunker as often perhaps, or you can bunker at cheaper locations. And there's also the onboard production potential. Often you have a lot of wind delivered to the vessel that you can't use all of it, and you have to spill that wind. if you were able to put turbines above water or in the water, feathering your propellers, you can actually generate some energy on board those vessels, and those systems are under development.
Well, that's pretty cool too. He's talking about also putting wind turbines up to produce energy. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, this isn't like particularly new technology. I mean, on my sailboat, we got sails to get around, and we got I got a windmill to produce energy for my batteries, and the technology is available to use that electric energy to propel a motor. There's a fellow over in Key West. He's got a 100% electric catamaran. No sails, but his cat is entirely solar powered. Now his the entire top of his boat is all solar panels. So I mean, at least he's shaded under there. And I think he only does like 14 knots on a, doesn't have a lot of speed, but the tech is there. See what you're saying, Russell. They shouldn't charge fees. I agree. The benefits are self-evident. Carbon credits are BS. It's like paying for indulgences in the Middle Ages. Yeah, man. It doesn't ever feel like we are going more and more reverting to the Middle Ages, where I feel like a fucking serf all the time.
Present. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm sure none of you do. Predictability and future proofing. Well, this is actually wind propulsion, in a sense, will give you something of a crystal ball because it locks in a fuel price of 0 for the percentage that wind is delivering. So you're actually you're locking in, say, 20 to 30%. Fuel price of 0. That means you only have to worry about the other 70%. That's still a substantial amount, of course, but it also puts you into a much higher compliance level for upcoming emissions legislation. For example, when a carbon levy or tax is actually imposed, you would already be quite a way in front of that. Now, just talking about the direct application of wind power, I'm not going to spend a long time on this slide, but please do take a look at this. We're talking about, as I mentioned before, wind delivered directly to, or energy delivered directly to the vessel, not converted through an alternative fuel. Do we need alternative fuels? Absolutely we do. We're not talking about vessels that are going to be 100% wind, although we can get close. But the point is that we are actually using that energy at the point of delivery with no new infrastructure. And we look at this in a hybrid wave. So wind plus activity plus vessel plus eco-fuels. So the wind component, as I've mentioned before, that's been estimated to be around about 20 to 30% across the fleet that could be delivered from wind, retrofits and new builds. So at present, that is not the case, but we're building towards that. With activity, operational optimization. Actually, if you start linking in things like weather routing, speed reduction into a wind vessel, then you're starting to maximize that wind potential, but also you're improving the operations of a normal vessel alone. Crew training, all of these new business models, etc. Then looking at, so if that delivered 20%, then we could be looking at vessel optimization with design, energy management systems, incorporating wind into those better, air lubrication, reduced energy, power, energy efficiency measures on those vessels, 20 to 30%. What that does is that leaves maybe a 40% element for the eco-fuel side. And that's a much easier nut to crack when we're looking at a very substantial rollout that's going to be required for those eco fuels. So we could see those coming into the market quicker. Also, less storage space will be required because you would have to carry less of the fuel, but of course, most of these alternative fuels have a lower energy density, so take up more space. So I've talked about those kind of big vision, big aspects, but what are we actually talking about around wind propulsion? Well, the technology toolbox out there can be broken down into 7 key areas. 5 of these are developing quite quickly, but a couple of these are also very interesting as well. So I'll go from left to right here. The hard sail option, anybody that's seen an America's Cup or racing vessels today, which look more like aircraft than sailing yachts sometimes. These developments, there are actually quite a few different hard sail versions that are being developed at the moment. But these have been, the systems have been tried and tested in that leisure market. These are now being developed, upgraded, and some of them have already been tested quite substantially as well. The second one is kites, and anybody who was interested in decarbonization.
I want to see these kites. I heard him saying something about it. Yeah, look at right here. See this kite pushing off the bow of that boat there? These are some interesting designs. You got like a helicopter. I guess that's just a turbine on that one. Yeah, what are these things called that come off the side? That's escaping me right now. Not hell. What is the term for the things coming off the side of the these right here? It's been driving me crazy. You can't think of something. We got square rig sails here. Look at these square rigs. Kites. That's a turbine or a rotor. Hull form.
Organization or reducing fuel 10 to 15 years ago would have seen the sky sail system that was brought in. It was brought in quite early. Fuel price was a critical issue there without the regulation driver. So they came, they were tested. They're now developing a sort of second stage or a Mark II version of those sails. And we have a couple of new entrants in there as well. One of the interesting things with kites is they can be used on existing container ships because they're an off-deck solution. And of course, deck space is at absolute premium for a container vessel. Rotors. I actually have a slide a bit later on rotors, but rotors, these are a cylinder that rotates. So it's called a Flettner rotor. It was developed back in the 1920s. The cylinder rotates with a small electric motor. As the wind hits those rotating cylinders, it uses the Magnus effect, which is very similar to a curveball effect in baseball. As the wind hits that rotating cylinder, there's a differential in pressure from the front and the back of the cylinder, and that creates thrust. And actually, this system is the one that's broken into the market earliest. We have, I think by the end of this year, we will have 8 or 9 installations. I think it's 9 installations with 18 rotors in operation from a VLCC tanker, sorry, not a VLCC, 109,000 deadweight ton tanker from Maersk tankers called the Maersk Pelican, through to a 64,000 deadweight ton bulker that's in operation in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. All the way through to ferries, and I think the last installation was on a Scanlines ferry, but I will talk about that a little bit more in a moment. We also have soft sail and dyno rigs, and these are probably what most people think of when they think of wind propulsion. So a more classic soft sail system, and a number of these are coming back into coming through the pipeline and into testing at the moment. On the top right, we have the suction wing, and this was actually has various different names. It was originally called a turbo sail. The suction wing was developed by Jacques Cousteau's team in the 1980s. So anybody remembering Jacques Cousteau, you're probably around my age. And he was he had a couple of research vessels that used this system quite effectively for many years. This is now being developed by a French company called Crane Technologies and also Econowind. And there are a couple of installations of this system as well. And what this is it's a rigid wing, but it has vents in the back of it and a small fan which sucks in the boundary layer around the wing and creates additional thrust or additional lift in there. The other two systems are smaller sections, but still developing quite quickly. Turbines are coming in, looking both at potential for direct propulsion, which is interesting because you can go directly into the wind with these, but also with electrical generation as well. And the final one on the right side, it was actually in the news just recently because a controlling stake was taken in a company called Vinskip, and they've actually developed a system which uses the hull as a wing itself. So as it motors into a headwind, that creates lift and forward thrust. So a lot of people ask me about that. How does it work? You know, I'm not a technical expert here, so that my answer tends to be pretty much by magic. It's incredible. So a lot of these systems, you know, the amount of thrust that they can actually generate is way beyond what most of us would appreciate. So I'm going to move on to the market forecast and current status. So again, one of the big questions people ask me, where are we today? Well, by the end of this year, it looks like we will have 13 ocean-going vessels with wind assist systems installed. It's possible that a 14th one will be installed as well. And these are large commercial vessels in operation around the world, from a VLCC over in China, all the way down to, as I said, coastal freighters, ferry crews, tankers, bulkers are all within that. But that doesn't include the 20 or so small sail cargo vessels, and those are mainly operating in developed countries. There are also a number of sail vessels that still operate, for example, in the Indian Ocean. So that's probably a higher than 20 there. Those are small traditional sail cargo vessels, and there's a number of cruise vessels. I think there's up to about 10 small cruise vessels that also have wind on them, sometimes used as propulsion, sometimes used as a backdrop for drinking a nice chilled glass of champagne. By the end of 2022, just with the existing pipeline that I know of, we are looking at 47 or more retrofitted and new build vessels, either sea trialing or in commercial operation. And
I want to see this. I want to see this.
Plus 30 small vessels.
I want to see the suction sail.
Any new commercial contracts made between today and the end of 2022, amount of vessels. And as you'll see on the left side, we have a graphic, 2 billion per year, £2 billion per year all of a sudden. But just before the COVID situation, we had fuel prices in the sort of 500 to 550 area for a ton of fuel. That's nudging onto the $600 zone, which starts to make a lot of the ROIs within that 3.5 year payback period for wind propulsion systems. Of course, that coming into installation and are making public statements. An awful lot are not making public statements at present. They are quietly working in the background. We will be seeing much, much more coming through in the next couple of years. But just on the bottom left, I was talking about a VLCC that's in operation. That's over in China. They've actually just ordered a second one, which will be built and I think delivered by 2022. So they're delighted with how that's been working. It has retractable wing sails on it. In the top middle, MOL has also working with the University of Tokyo and some of the shipbuilders and engineering companies over in Japan have also developed a collapsible wing sail, and they're going to be installing that on a new build in 2022. Each sail delivering around about 5% savings. In the middle here, we have 3 systems that are retrofit and, of course, can be used for new builds as well. One is the Econowind Ventafoil. There's a second installation of that going onto a vessel in the next couple of weeks. So there will be 2 of those systems, and this is under the WASP project, which I will mention in the last slide in a moment. And that's being monitored and evaluated over this coming year. The air-sea system, which I mentioned before, they are testing these on Louis Dreyfus amateur ship next year. Also, K-Lines will be testing theirs in 2021.
Let's have a look here. I want to see, I can't find any videos on the suction sails, which seems pretty cool, but let's see, I got a couple other ones here pop up. Inflated wing. Well, if that ain't some shit, huh? That was pretty cool. That was the inflated wing sail. That's crazy. Let's check out this the Beneteau wing sail rig.
We saw plenty of wings last year on America's Cup boats, but how long before they start turning up on some of our cruising boats? Well, the answer might be sooner than you think. I'm on board this standard production Beneteau, Beneteau Sense 43, but this is a Beneteau with a difference. She's got a highly innovative wing rig. In fact, it's a very, very new development for them. In fact, so new, it hasn't even got a proper name yet. They're calling it Project Magic Wing. Well, I'm here in France, just outside Beneteau's factory, and we're going to go out and see how it works. Unlike the cut boats, this wing doesn't need to be craned into the boat each time. Instead, the wing shape is hoisted, much like a conventional sail. The difference is that the aerofoil-shaped sail wraps around an unstayed mast. The aerofoil shape is formed using battens that act like hoops. Well, here we are, sail hoisted and sailing. Now, it might have been a bit of a workup actually getting the sail up the mast. It's a big rig, and in fact the sail area, the total sail area of this sail plan is only 3 square meters less than the mainsail and the Genoa on the conventional rig. So it's a lot of sail to hoist all in one go. But Beneteau are very aware of this, and in fact you have to remember this is a prototype. So at the moment the main halyard, which is underneath the boom, isn't in exactly the most convenient place, and it is a bit of a workup getting it up. But in the future the plan is to have a captive reel winch mounted inside the boom to make this operation a push button operation. Once the sail's up, it's an incredibly simple rig to handle. Tacking is really easy. What's interesting about the way that the rig articulates is that not only does it rotate around here, but the middle section actually tacks itself as if the sail's popping itself to leeward, and the whole thing is automatic. Under sail, she is actually a much easier boat to sail. She's automatic, basically, the one sheet on the boom, self-tacking rig, but there are a few differences. The most noticeable is that you can't use the tailtails in the way that you normally would on a Genoa, because they just don't lift. If you come up into the breeze, they just don't flutter. Instead, what you need to do is you need to look at the hawk at the top of the mast, and actually you need to keep the arrow in line with the tab. And of course that makes perfect sense, because what you're trying to do with this rig is make sure that the angle of attack on the wing is always the same. So when you rotate the wing, you need to steer to the tabs on the top of the sail. And that does feel a little strange, I have to say, because you're constantly looking right up at the top of the rig instead of ahead at the luff. One of the other things that's really interesting is that when you're sailing dead downwind, as we are now, as you might expect, the boom is all the way out. But what happens if you do a crash jibe? Well, interestingly, there is none of the drama and the thumping into the rigging, because there is no rigging. And in fact, as you go through the breeze, the boom just comes swinging across and then just slows down at its own accord on the other side. So even just from a safety point of view, it's got quite a lot of things going for it. So could this be the future of
the safety point of view? You see that? You see that sheet line? That is almost, man, that'll whip you, strangle you up. That don't seem incredibly safe to me. But this is really interesting.
of cruising sailing? Well, Beneteau think it could be. At the moment, this is in development, and they freely admit that it's going to take another 2 years before it actually gets anywhere near mainstream. But you have to say, it's very impressive, and there's an awful lot of plus points to go with it. I wouldn't bet against it, that's for sure. And there's one last thing that struck me about this innovative new rig. It actually looks quite nice, particularly on the Beneteau Sense, a boat that is modern and quite futuristic in itself. So maybe there is a future for wing sails in cruising after all.
Dang, that's pretty rad. Yeah, look at that. Just a little bit less the sail area. Very nice, Matthew Sheehan. Great article. Alright, man, well, it's just about time to click over to Salty Cracker. I'm going to watch on my friend's channel, JSBC1, or Just Some Brown Conservative. He does chat, you know, so we watch Salty Cracker together and we do a chat there. So if you're not subbed to Just Some Brown Conservative on YouTube or JSBC1 on Rumble, that's where we'll be heading. Alright, man, thanks for watching.